Hello again. So today we come to Revelation chapter 13. And Revelation chapter 13 really draws a lot of its influences and its ideas from Daniel chapter 7. So maybe you want to have a flick back to Daniel chapter 7 and have a read of that so you'll get the idea. If you do, this is what you'll find. In Daniel chapter 7, we hear about 4 monsters that come up out of the sea. The first is a winged lion, the second a bear, the third a leopard, the fourth greater and more terrible than all the others, with 10 horns and 1 smaller horn. And we'd like to know, what do these stand for? What are these symbols of? Well, the monsters represent 4 kingdoms, the last being different or worse than all the others. The horns, they stand for kings within each empire. The last will make war against God's people. And then, in Daniel chapter 7, comes the great reversal, where the Ancient of Days calls forward the one like a son of man. And the kingdoms that have been against God are put aside. God's new kingdom has come. The one like a son of man will rule over it forever and ever. That's Daniel chapter 7. But when we come to Revelation chapter 13, we find that John telescopes those 4 images into one. In verse 2, when we read the picture, we realise that John is talking about Rome. It's an empire that seems to embody all that was awful about those previous empires that we saw in Daniel chapter 7. Rome is an earthly kingdom opposed to God. Now, in days gone by, when the Roman Empire was established, emperors would come and go, but eventually they reached a point where the emperor demanded worship. They set themselves up as being divine. Chapter 1 to 11 of this amazing chapter are talking about the time when John was writing, when the Christians were suffering. But how? When we come to the second half of the chapter, verses 12 to 18, we come across a second monster. Now, what is this monster? Well, behind the monsters of the first half stands the dragon. The dragon is Satan, whose power really is seen in the first monster, the Roman Empire. What's the second monster? Well, the second monster is the local cities, the local elites, who wanted to outdo each other in saying how much they loved Rome. What we have here is an unholy trinity set up opposed to the trinity that we all know, where the dragon is the Satan, the first monster is the empire, Rome, opposed to God, and the second monster is those city-states all trying to appease the centrality of Rome, setting up their own temples to the emperor. Now, Rome went through an awful year in AD 69 when Nero was killed. Thereafter, there were 4 emperors who came swiftly to the throne and then went. It looked like Rome was finished. But like one rising from the dead, Rome was established once more. And in the period after that, the Christians began to suffer. What we find in this second half of the chapter is that in a bid to show Rome how keen they were, each city-state would set up a system whereby if you wanted to trade in their locality, you had to sacrifice to the local gods, you had to sacrifice to the emperor, and you were given a mark to show that you were legit. The Christians then had faced a dilemma. Would they submit to this authority? Would they bow the knee to the local gods and therefore let Jesus down? Or would they stay faithful to King Jesus, but thereby meaning that they probably couldn't trade locally? Would they compromise, or would they stay faithful? That's been the story of history from that empire until today. Christians are challenged. Will they stay faithful, or will they bow the knee? Sue's got some words to speak about how this might be applied in our time today.